The air conditioning in this sterile conference room bites at my skin, a cruel contrast to the fire churning in my gut. My hand, steady despite the tremor that started weeks ago and refuses to leave, pushes the document forward. The pen feels heavy, a weapon disguised as office supply. Across the polished table, the lawyers watch, their faces impassive masks of professional neutrality. They see a transaction. They don't see the years of blood, sweat, and quiet sacrifice poured into building something brick by brick. They don't see the marriage, the trust that was not just broken but ground into dust. They don't see the woman who thought she was building a future, signing away a past she no longer recognizes. The ink flows, black and final on the dotted line. A click of the pen cap. A folder slides shut. It is done. The silence in the room is deafening, pregnant with the unborn screams of men who thought they were smarter. This isn't just an acquisition. This is the sound of a cage door slamming shut from the inside. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Life before this felt like a perfectly calibrated machine. Every gear meshing, every system running smoothly. My company, built from a single idea sketched on a napkin in a noisy cafe, had become everything I dreamed of and more. We didn't just sell products. We built community, empowered people, fostered creativity. It was a living, breathing entity that demanded my soul, and I gave it willingly. Late nights blurred into early mornings, the hum of servers and the scent of fresh coffee my constant companions. John was part of that life, woven into the fabric of it. My husband. He wasn't involved in the day-to-day. His world was finance, sharp suits, and impenetrable jargon, but he was my anchor. He celebrated my successes, listened patiently to my frustrations, offered a quiet strength I relied on. We had our routines, our inside jokes, the comfortable rhythm of a shared existence built over 15 years. Dinner reservations on Tuesdays, quiet weekends at our small cabin upstate, the easy way we finished each other's sentences. My company was the child we didn't have, and in a way, he was its proud, if distant, stepfather. I trusted him implicitly. That was the foundation. Not love, not just companionship, but absolute, unwavering trust. He handled the investment side, the pension funds, the larger financial structures. It made sense. He was good at it. I was good at building the business, the brand, the soul. We were a team. An unbreakable unit, I thought. The first crack was so small, so insignificant, I almost missed it. A line item in a quarterly report, flagged by my new junior accountant. A payment to a shell company I didn't recognize. Small money in the grand scheme, a few $1,000s. Probably a vendor I forgot about, I'd said, waving it away. But the accountant, young and annoyingly diligent, had pressed. There's no corresponding invoice, no services rendered that we can identify. Annoyed, I'd looked into it myself. It led to another payment, slightly larger, to a different ghost company. And then another, like breadcrumbs, but leading into a dark wood I didn't want to enter. John dismissed it. Just a clerical error, darling. My team must have miscategorized something. I'll look into it, he smiled, that reassuring, solid smile, and the knot in my stomach loosened. He would fix it. He always did. But the knot didn't completely vanish. It tightened with each passing week as the clerical errors continued. Not massive amounts, not yet, but persistent like a slow, steady leak. I started digging deeper myself, working late, long after my staff had left, the only light the glow of my monitor reflecting in the dark windows. I accessed accounts John managed, accounts I had implicit faith in him to oversee. The complexity of the transactions was bewildering at first. Funds routed through subsidiaries I barely remembered setting up, money siphoned off as consulting fees or licensing agreements with entities whose names sounded vaguely familiar but evaporated when I searched for actual company registration or a physical address. My early struggles were not about finding the money but understanding why it was being moved and where it was ultimately going. It felt like trying to follow a single thread of water through a vast, underground cave system. Every path seemed to dead end. Every name led to another layer of obfuscation. I questioned John again, more directly this time. He became defensive, impatient. Are you questioning my integrity? After everything? It's complex financing. You wouldn't understand. Leave it to me. His eyes held a flicker I didn't recognize, a coldness that sent a shiver down my spine. But he was stressed, I told myself. Running a company like mine was demanding. Maybe he was just tired. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. The breadcrumbs turned into boulders. The amounts increased, draining funds from reserves I was planning to use for expansion. Payroll was met. Bills were paid. The company facade remained strong, but I could see the foundation eroding beneath the surface. The money wasn't just moving out, it was moving to specific places. Names started to appear, names attached to a rapidly growing competitor in the cosmetic industry, Aphrodite Bloom. Their marketing was everywhere, their products suddenly stocked in major retailers, their launch seemingly overnight. And the name behind Aphrodite Bloom was one I vaguely recognized from society pages, a woman named Isabella Moreau. Elegant, poised, and radiating an aura of effortless success that now tasted like ash in my mouth. I cross-referenced the shell companies, the transactions, the rising star of Aphrodite Bloom. The pattern became sickeningly clear. My company's funds were the fuel igniting Isabella Moreau's empire. John wasn't just mismanaging finances. He was actively funding a direct competitor. My blood ran cold.
Why?
Was it incompetence? A terrible investment gone wrong? Or something far more deliberate? The rising challenges weren't just financial anymore. They were existential. My company was bleeding out, bankrolling the very entity poised to steal its market share. I couldn't go to the board. John had strategically placed allies there over the years, men who trusted him implicitly, men who saw me as the creative force, but him as the financial anchor. If I accused him without irrefutable proof, they would side with him. I would be seen as hysterical, paranoid, perhaps even trying to stage a corporate takeover by discrediting him. I was trapped in a cage of my own making, built on years of shared life and assumed loyalty. The suspicion gnawed at me constantly. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, my nights spent poring over spreadsheets, my days maintaining a brittle smile, watching John across the breakfast table, a stranger in my own home. The deepening crisis wasn't just about the money or the company anymore. It was personal, a corrosive poison spreading through every aspect of my life. The discovery was a gut punch that left me breathless on the floor of my office one night, surrounded by printouts detailing the transfers. It wasn't just funding a competitor. The transactions linked directly to Isabella Moreau. And the whispers I dismissed as gossip, about John's frequent business trips coinciding with Isabella's appearances, about late nights at the office that didn't involve any actual work, crashed down on me with the weight of a collapsing building. It wasn't just financial sabotage. It was betrayal in its most ancient, visceral form. Adultery woven into corporate espionage, using the very resources I had built to fund his mistress's rise and, I now suspected, my eventual downfall. He wasn't just stealing from my company. He was stealing my life, my identity, my future. The pain was physical, a searing ache behind my ribs. The isolation was absolute. Who could I trust? My husband was my enemy. My closest confidants on the board were potentially compromised or, worse, complicit. My company was dying a slow, deliberate death from within. I felt like an animal caught in a snare, thrashing against ropes that only tightened with every struggle. The more I dug, the deeper the rabbit hole went. He hadn't just diverted funds. He had woven a complex web of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and dummy directorships that would make proving anything incredibly difficult. He'd used his knowledge of my company's financial structure, its vulnerabilities, against it. Against me. The emotional toll was immense. I lost weight. My skin was pale. My eyes permanently shadowed. I remember looking in the mirror one morning and not recognizing the gaunt, haunted woman staring back. The life we had built felt like a cruel joke, a stage play where I was the unwitting, foolish protagonist heading towards a tragic end while the audience, the board, maybe even some of my staff, knew the truth all along. The feeling of being utterly alone, Facing the destruction of everything I cared about was a cold, suffocating blanket. My early attempts to subtly confront him or gather more evidence were met with gaslighting, manipulation, and increased secrecy on his part. He grew colder, more distant. The marriage, once a source of comfort, became a battleground of unspoken accusations and carefully constructed lies. I was losing on every front. Then came the moment the snare didn't just feel like a trap, but a turning fork in the path. A fork I could choose to follow down a different, darker road. I was tracing one particularly large sum, disguised as a strategic investment, when I stumbled upon its final destination. Not Aphrodite Bloom itself, but a smaller, lesser-known entity. Cosmosource Holdings. Digging deeper, I discovered Cosmosource Holdings wasn't a competitor. It was the primary parent distributor for Aphrodite Bloom. They sourced the raw materials, handled manufacturing logistics, warehousing, and crucial parts of the supply chain that Aphrodite Bloom, being a new company, relied on entirely. Aphrodite Bloom was the pretty face, the brand, the marketing savvy. Cosmosource Holdings was the spine, the muscles, the entire circulatory system. And Cosmosource Holdings was in trouble. Not failing, but vulnerable. Their founding family was aging, looking to exit, quietly seeking a buyer who understood the complexities of the cosmetics supply chain but also had the financial stability to take them on. They needed capital, infrastructure, and a buyer who wouldn't disrupt their established, if old-fashioned, operations. My company had capital, infrastructure, and I understood the cosmetics industry intimately, not just the brand side but the operational complexities from years of building my own. A wild, exhilarating, terrifying idea took root. He was using my company to build her empire by funding her distributor. What if I used my company to acquire her distributor? The midpoint shift wasn't just the discovery of the affair and the financial sabotage. That was the inciting incident that plunged me into crisis. The shift was the moment I stopped focusing on the betrayal and started seeing the strategic opportunity. It was the cold, hard realization that his intricate web of deceit hadn't just created a weapon against me, it had also inadvertently revealed the single, critical vulnerability of the entity he was trying to build. He had shown me the jugular. My company's financial resources, depleted but not yet destroyed, combined with my deep industry knowledge and existing infrastructure, gave me the leverage he never anticipated. He saw me as the emotional, creative half of our equation, the half he could easily outmaneuver with logic and finance. He forgot I understood the market, the supply chain, the delicate balance of the ecosystem better than he ever could from his removed financial perch. This was the plot twist. Not just that he betrayed me, but that his betrayal, in its very execution, created the pathway for my counterstrike. The victim wasn't just going to survive, she was going to leverage the attack vector against the attacker. The decision solidified into a chilling resolve. This wasn't about revenge anymore, not purely. It was about survival, about protecting the legacy I had built, about reclaiming my agency in a situation where I had been rendered powerless. The planning became my obsession. I moved in secret, colder, more calculating than I ever thought possible. I brought in an external M&A lawyer I'd used years ago, someone known for their discretion and ruthlessness. I didn't tell them the full story, just that I saw a strategic acquisition opportunity and needed absolute confidentiality. The negotiations with the Cosmosource family were delicate. They wanted assurances, stability, someone who wouldn't dismantle their life's work. I leveraged my company's reputation, my personal passion for the industry, painting a picture of synergy and growth. Meanwhile, maintaining the facade at home and the office was a constant strain. John seemed emboldened, more confident, likely seeing his plan nearing fruition. He would make comments about Aphrodite Bloom's success, subtle digs about dated business models, hinting at a future where my company might need to adapt or partner with innovative newcomers. Each word was a twist of the knife, but I just smiled, playing the naive wife who trusted her husband's financial acumen. The deepening crisis was the internal war, the public face of calm competence masking the hurricane of cold fury and meticulous planning within. My resources were stretched thin, the legal fees mounting, the acquisition terms requiring significant capital. My company's reserves, already depleted by John's theft, were now being drained further by my countermove. It was a race against time. Could I complete the acquisition before his continued siphoning, or some other final, devastating blow he had planned, crippled my company irrevocably? The stakes were everything. My company, my financial security, my professional reputation, my very sense of self. The turning point wasn't a sudden event, but a quiet, internal hardening. It happened one night as I sat alone in my office, the city lights a distant, uncaring constellation. I held a picture of John and me from years ago, smiling, young, full of hope. The image was a ghost. What he had done wasn't a mistake or a lapse in judgment. It was a sustained, deliberate act of destruction, built on a foundation of lies and betrayal. He didn't just want to leave. He wanted to leave me professionally and financially ruined, paving the way for his new life, funded by my labor. There was no possibility of reconciliation, no salvageable piece of the marriage. The grief was a dull ache now, replaced by a sharp, focused clarity. I wasn't fighting for the marriage or for emotional justice. I was fighting for survival, for the right to exist on my own terms. The decision was made, etched in ice. I would see this through, no matter the cost. The acquisition would happen, and the fallout would be seismic. I shredded the old photograph, watching the smiling faces turn into confetti. The past was gone. It was time for war. The day the acquisition closed was gray and drizzly outside, but inside the conference room, the air crackled with a cold, electric energy. My legal team, sharp and efficient, finalized the paperwork. Representatives from Cosmosource Holdings, a stern-faced daughter and a weary-looking son, signed their names, passing the torch of their family legacy. My pen was the last to touch the page. I didn't look at the lawyers, didn't acknowledge the polite handshakes. My gaze was fixed on the signed documents, the pile growing thicker with each passing minute. This wasn't just paper, it was power. Control. With this acquisition, my company, already a major player, now controlled the crucial supply chain for Aphrodite Bloom. Their manufacturing, their product flow, their access to raw materials, it all ran through Cosmosource Holdings, which now belonged to me. The news broke quietly at first. A press release issued late in the afternoon. A strategic acquisition in the cosmetics supply chain sector. My company, named, and the acquired entity, Cosmosource Holdings, also named. It seemed innocuous enough to the outside world. A smart business move. But I knew the ripple effect it would have. I was still at the office, working late, when my private line rang. It was John. His voice, usually smooth and controlled, was ragged, disbelieving. What have you done? I leaned back in my chair, the exhaustion of months replaced by a brittle calm. Hello, John. Cosmosource? You bought Cosmosource? Are you insane? His voice was rising, bordering on a scream. Not insane, I said softly. Just cleaning up. Cleaning up? You've destroyed everything. Isabella's business. He sputtered, searching for words. It's reliant on them. You know that. Of course I know that, John, I said, the calmness in my voice a deliberate weapon. How do you think I knew who to buy? Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then, a choked sound, somewhere between a sob and a roar of pure rage. You found out. Found out what, John? I played dumb, twisting the knife. That Cosmosource Holdings was a strategically undervalued asset that would integrate perfectly into our operations and significantly enhance our market position. Yes, my team and I did our due diligence. Don't play coy with me. You know about Isabella. About the money. You bought her supply chain just to ruin her. He was shouting now, the facade completely gone. The money? I let a hint of cold curiosity enter my voice. Are you referring to the tens of millions of dollars siphoned out of my company's accounts, routed through shell companies, and funneled directly to Cosmosource Holdings? The money you stole from me, from the company I built, to fund your mistress's venture? His response was pure animalistic fury. It wasn't stealing. It was an investment. A smart investment. She was going to be huge. And your company is stagnant. Old news. I was doing what was best for our future. Our future. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Was our future supposed to involve bankrupting my company to prop up your mistresses? Because that's what your smart investment was doing, John. Systematically draining the lifeblood from this company. I would have paid it back, he screamed. Once Aphrodite Bloom took off, I would have restructured, covered the tracks. You wouldn't have had to, I interrupted, my voice like ice. Because once Aphrodite Bloom succeeded, this company would have been worthless. You intended to hollow it out and leave me with nothing, didn't you? To divorce me and walk away with. What? Half of the shell? While she reigned supreme, funded by my years of work? He didn't answer, just breathing heavily into the phone. Well, I said, my voice hardening further, consider this my counter-investment, John. You invested in her spine. I bought it. As of today, Cosmosource Holdings belongs to my company, which means Aphrodite Bloom has no supply chain, no manufacturing, no distribution. They are a brand without products. Another strangled sound from his end. The sheer shock, the blindsiding finality of it, was almost audible. He hadn't just been caught. He had been outmaneuvered on a scale he clearly hadn't imagined possible. He thought his financial engineering made him invincible. He forgot that controlling the means of production is more powerful than controlling the sales pitch. You can't do this, he stammered. Oh, I just did, I said. The papers are signed. The funds have transferred. Cosmosource Holdings is now a wholly owned subsidiary of my company. Your mistress's cosmetic empire just imploded. You built it on stolen ground, John. And the ground just got pulled out from under it. His scream, when it came, was raw, primal, full of disbelief and impotent rage. It was not the scream of a man who had been caught in a messy affair and some financial indiscretion. It was the scream of a man who had meticulously planned a hostile takeover and watched his entire strategy collapse in a single, devastating move orchestrated by the person he had underestimated the most. He railed, he threatened, he begged, his words dissolving into an incoherent stream of accusations and despair. I listened for a moment longer, letting the sound wash over me, the sound of his world ending, mirroring the sound of mine when I discovered his betrayal. Then, calmly, I hung up the phone. The silence in the office returned, but it was different now. Not heavy with dread, but clean, sharp, like broken glass. The climax wasn't a physical confrontation. It was this moment of absolute, strategic annihilation delivered over the phone line, watching his carefully constructed reality crumble from a distance. I won. Not because I was louder or angrier, but because I saw the hidden structure, found the weakness, and acted with cold precision. The aftermath wasn't a swift closure. It was a long, drawn-out disentangling. The acquisition of Cosmosource Holdings was messy, integrating two disparate corporate cultures, but strategically brilliant. Aphrodite Bloom sputtered and died within weeks. Without their core supplier, their retail partners dropped them, their investors pulled out, and Isabella Moreau's meteoric rise ended as quickly as it began. The legal fallout from John's financial crimes within my company was immense. With the evidence I had meticulously gathered, presented to the board after the acquisition was undeniable, he was removed, his allies scattered, and internal investigations commenced. The divorce was brutal, public, dissecting the carcass of our marriage in courtrooms and tabloids. I fought for every asset he had touched, every penny he had diverted, not out of greed, but out of a fierce need to reclaim what was rightfully mine and to ensure there were consequences. He faced legal repercussions for the financial misconduct, his reputation in tatters. Isabella vanished from the public eye, her empire built on sand sinking back into nothingness. Winning felt cold, satisfying, yes, in a deep, bone-weary way. The company was safe, stronger even, integrated with its crucial supply chain. I had protected my life's work, but the cost had been everything else. The marriage was a ruin, trust a foreign concept. The woman who believed in shared dreams and unwavering loyalty was gone, replaced by someone harder, more cynical. The quiet life I had valued was shattered by scandal and litigation. Rebuilding wasn't just about the company, it was about rebuilding myself. Finding a way to live with the knowledge of such profound betrayal, with the memory of that scream echoing in my ears. It's a process, ongoing. The office is quieter now, the hum of the servers a less comforting sound. The city lights outside the window are just lights, no longer holding the promise of a shared future. But the company thrives, and I stand at its helm, scarred but unbroken. I learned that the most dangerous betrayals come from within, and sometimes the only way to win is to play the game they started, but play it better, colder, and with the knowledge they never thought you possessed. The victory is mine, but it tastes like steel. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.